This is the Buffett Mindset channel where we practice patience and calm wealth building daily. If you enjoy these types of videos, consider liking and subscribing. This will mean a lot to the channel. You see, son, there comes a time in every man's life when he got to stop asking whether he worthy and start acting like he already been chosen. Not chosen by luck, not by the crowd, not by the noise of applause, but by something far greater, by God himself. Now, I don't mean that in some fancy preacher tone. I mean it in the marrow deep truth of existence. You wouldn't still be breathing if the Almighty hadn't already signed off on your purpose. But here's the tragedy. Most men walk around like beggars in a kingdom that already belongs to them. They wait for signs, for doors, for people to validate what heaven has already declared. They pray for confirmation when what they really need is conviction. Listen to me. When God gives you life, he already said yes. Every breath is permission. Every sunrise is confirmation. You don't need to keep knocking on the same door you were born to walk through. You need to start acting like the anointing has already landed on your shoulders, like the oil already been poured and the throne already waiting. That not arrogance, that obedience. Why? Now, when I say that God already said yes, I ain't talking about pretending you've got it figured out. I'm talking about walking in such certainty that doubt becomes embarrassed to stand next to you. You see, most men pray for signs, but the chosen build them. They pray for open doors, but the chosen pick up a hammer and carve their own. They talk about destiny like it's a prize handed out at the end of the race, but the truth is destiny's been waiting in your pocket since the day you were born. You just never reached in and grabbed it. God doesn't choose the convenient and chooses the committed. He doesn't anoint the perfect, anoints the persistent. The question is, did they choose me? The question is, will I move like I did? Because if you truly believe the creator of the universe whispered your name before the foundations of time, would you still doubt yourself in morning? Would you still play small, hoping not to offend anyone with your greatness? Would you still wait for another year, another sign, another piece of advice? Or would you wake up, tighten your belt, and say, all right, Lord, you said yes. Now it's time I act like it. When a man moves with that kind of belief, the world bends. The storms still come, but they part for him. Not because he better, but because he aligned. You ever seen a river cut through a mountain? It doesn't do it with force. It does it with faith. It keeps flowing day after day, believing that the rock will yield. It always does. That's what faith looks like, not begging for change, but moving deed if the change is already done. You've been told your whole life to wait on God, but son, sometimes God is waiting on you. Waiting to see if you'll walk even when the path isn't clear. Waiting to see if you'll carry the torch when nobody else believes in the fire. Waiting to see if you'll trust his yes even when your circumstances scream no. Now let it tell you something real. The man who acts that he already chosen lives differently. His shoulders are square. His voice has weight. He doesn't waste words or chase approval. Doesn't bow to opinion or fear rejection. Because when you know the King of Heaven has already stamped your name, no earthly rejection can unsettle you. You stop living like you're applying for a position and start living like you're fulfilling an assignment. You stop chasing blessings and start becoming one. And then the beauty, when you carry yourself like that, the world takes notice, opportunities align, people listen, doors open, not because you force them, but because you carry the authority of someone who belongs inside. Faith doesn't wait for permission, it moves with assumption. It assumes the victory, but it knows who wrote the ending. But make no mistake, walking like you've been chosen ain't easy. The chosen don't get comfort, they get calling. You'll lose people. You'll face silence. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be mocked for your certainty. But those are the birth pains of purpose. Every man who built something eternal had to walk alone for a season. Moses didn't part the sea with a crowd behind him. He parted it standing between fear and faith. David didn't become king in a palace. He became one in a pasture. Even Christ himself walked the desert before he walked the cross. That the pattern? The chosen must always walk through fire, not to prove themselves to God, but to prove their faith to themselves. And every step through the flame purifies the man until then nothing left but conviction. So if you're listening to this, if something in your chest is stirring, I'm here to tell you that not coincidence, that confirmation, that the divine reminding you that you were built for more than drifting through doubt. That heaven calling collect asking, are you ready to move yet? So stop waiting for another miracle. Stop treating your purpose like a hobby. Stop living like a question mark when you were created an answer. This world is starving for men who know they've been chosen not because of arrogance, but because of obedience. Men who walk in quiet authority, who lead without asking for applause, who build with patience and power. That how you honor the God who picked you before you even knew your own name? Let this truth sink in. When God says yes, it's eternal. It doesn't expire when you doubt yourself. It doesn't fade when you fail. It doesn't vanish when others reject you. The yes of heaven is written in permanent ink, carved into the blueprint of your soul. The only question is whether you'll live up to it, that your assignment to act like you're already approved, to move like you're already backed by something infinite, to build like your hands are guided by divine purpose. And when you finally move that way, you'll notice something incredible. Everything you used to chase will start chasing you. Because purpose attracts provision, certainty attracts opportunity, faith attracts the future. The moment you stop waiting for permission, you become unstoppable. So from this day forward, I want you to rise every morning with this sentence in your heart. God already said yes. Whisper it when you doubt yourself. Write it where you can see it. Repeat it until it burns into your bones. Because once you truly believe that, hesitation dies, fear bows, confusion clears. And in that left is the man you were meant to become, steady, decisive, relentless, not because you're trying to impress heaven, but because he already representing it. That the law, son. Don't walk a man still asking for permission. Walk like a king already crowned. Don't wait for a sign when you were born in one. Don't pray for confirmation when the breath in your lungs is proof enough. Act that God has already chosen you because he has. And when you finally live that truth, the world won't have to ask who you are. It'll know. And once that truth sets in, that God already said yes long before the world has said maybe, something inside you changes. You stop asking, am I ready, and start declaring I'm chosen. You stop waiting for a sign and start moving like you are the sign. The very air begins to shift around a man who carries that level of conviction. Doors open, not because he forces them, but because the universe recognizes the authority in his stride. He doesn't beg opportunity, he becomes it. That the quiet miracle of divine certainty, it rearranges everything in your path because everything finally has a leader to foe. When heaven endorses you, it doesn't need to announce it. The proof is in your posture.
You see, the chosen don't need to scream. They don't need to convince. Their movement speaks louder than their mouth could. They move with the peace of someone who knows the outcome before the battle even begins. They're not gambling with destiny. They're walking in prophecy. And if you've ever wondered why people mean to glide through chaos while others drown in calm waters, with this, the chosen have already made peace with who sent them. They've stopped negotiating with fear. They've stopped renting space in doubt. They've accepted that their mission was written before they even took their first breath. That why they can face storms with steady hands and loss with quiet confidence is they're not questioning the outcome. They're following orders. But you must understand something crucial. Being chosen does not mean being comfortable. God is not a shortcut. It is summons. It is a call to labor, to carry, to build when no one believes it can be done. The chosen are often isolated before they are elevated. They are trained in obscurity before they are trusted in opportunity.
You may not be celebrated right now. You may not be understood, but that does not mean you're forgotten. But it means you're in the forge. Because the chosen are not made on stages, they're made in silence. They're refined by rejection, sculpted by delay, sharpened by struggle. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every lonely night is not punishment, it's preparation. You cannot wear a crown forged for eternity with a mind built for comfort. And when that truth settles deep enough, you stop praying for lighter loads and start praying for stronger backs. You realize the path of the chosen is narrow because it must filter the unready. You start to see hardship not the proof of failure, but the evidence of favor. Because the devil does not fight the ordinary. He wages war against the anointed. Every obstacle in your life is not there to stop you. It's there to verify you, to see if you believe you're calling enough to fight for it when no one claps. So when the weight presses down, when the world turns its back, when your plan crumbles in your hands, don't collapse, smile, because that's the test.
That heaven saying, let's see, Cleve still believes faith isn't built on easy roads. Faith is forged. Their sight fails when your logic says no, but your soul says move. That when the real warriors of destiny are revealed, anybody can praise when the path is clear, but the chosen praise in the dark. They build altars in deserts. They thank God before the blessing arrives. That the faith that moves mountains, not the kind that waits for proof, but the kind that creates it. Every time you act in faith, you shift reality closer to heaven design, because faith is not fantasy, it's agreement. Agreement that if the Creator planted the seed, it's your job to water it with action. So I say this now with absolute clarity. Stop shrinking. Stop dimming the light that was placed in you to guide others. Stop living like your existence is a coincidence. You are not waiting for favor. You are walking in it. You are not looking for signs. You are living one. You are not behind schedule. You are right on time. But the world will not believe it until you do.
Heaven will not move again until you move first. That the law of faith God initiates, man activates. So what are you waiting for? The prophecy has already been spoken. The approval has already been signed. The only thing missing is your movement. When you rise with that knowing, everything you touch begins to change. Mediocrity melts in your presence. People around you either evolve or exit. Your decisions gain weight. Your words begin to carry atmosphere. You start walking with the same quiet power that moved through men like Abraham, like Ford, like Buffett, like the ones who didn't wait for applause to begin. They simply moved because heaven had already whispered go. The moment you start acting like God has already said yes, you stop living from insecurity and start leading from inheritance. You stop wondering if you belong and start walking like you own your mission. Now the final revelation. When you live like the chosen, you no longer chase blessings. Blessings chase you. Because they recognize your alignment. They see that you're moving according to divine law, gratitude, discipline, faith, consistency. You begin to magnetize everything meant for you, not by striving, but by standing firm. You don't hustle for identity, you execute from identity. And soon, people start asking, how does he do it? How does he stay so calm while the world shakes? And your answer will be simple, because I already know who said yes. That the quiet confidence of the chosen, the unshaken peace of someone who knows his assignment is not up for debate. So wherever you are, whether at midnight or morning, whether you're lost or on the edge of breakthrough, remember this, you were chosen long before you ate for it. Your only duty now is to act like it. Don't move timidly through life, hoping to be discovered. Move boldly, knowing you were deployed. Don't keep praying for what already yours, start walking in it. Don't keep questioning whether God approves, start living like he already smiling, because he is. And when you act like God already said yes, the world rearranges itself to make it true. And when you begin to live that way, truly live it, the divine already made his decision, you start to realize that fear was never your enemy. Hesitation was. Fear any visits to test the strength of your faith, to ask, do you still believe what he told you? But hesitation is the thief of heaven timing. It what turns miracles into maybes, what turns destiny into delay. You see, God doesn't take away your blessings so you're in alignment to receive them. That's why the chosen must move if the contract already signed, if the ink from heaven pen is still drying on your purpose. When you understand that, you stop begging for opportunity and start build capacity. You stop saying, when my time comes, and start saying, my time is now. Because the truth is, heaven already scaled your victory. You keeps rescheduling the meeting. When a man acts like he's chosen, his very energy shifts the air in the room. He doesn't need to announce his authority. It and his silence, his steadiness, his refusal to bow to panic. When storms come, he doesn't pray for them to pass. He commands himself to stand still until the lesson is complete. That's what faith looks like in flesh obedience under pressure. The world calls that calm, but it's not calm. It's conviction. It's the knowing that whatever runs against him must first pass through the approval of the one who sent him. So he doesn't flinch when things fall apart. He knows sometimes God breaks the structure to reveal the foundation. Sometimes he tears down what you built in the flesh to rebuild it in the spirit. If you can understand that, you'll stop calling it loss and start calling it alignment. That what separates those who merely believe from those who walk the chosen. The believers wait for signs, the chosen create them. The believers hope the storm ends. The chosen build during the rain. The believers ask for clarity, the chosen move with command. You see, there's a level of faith where you stop praying for signs of approval and start walking in proof of assignment, that the miracles start happening, because miracles are not random. They're responsive. They come to those who act like their prayers are already answered. That's how heaven works. It doesn't move for emotion. It moves for execution. So if you say you trust God, show it. Trust is not a feeling, it's movement. It's saying yes or the outcome. It's stepping forward when the path is invisible. It's obeying when your logic still screams, wait, I had to tell you something of chosen men. They are never comfortable, not because God doesn't love them, but because he refuses to let them shrink to fit what they've outgrown. Every time you try to sell, heaven stirs your spirit. Every time you try to quit, conviction interrupts your sleep. Every time you try to silence your fire, it roars back louder. That not frustration, that divine unrest, that heaven saying, I won't let you die small. You were not built for mediocrity. You were not designed for safety. You were sculpted for significance, and comfort is the enemy of that design. The chosen don't pray for easy lives. They pray for stronger shoulders because they know God doesn't remove the mountain. He strengthens the climber.
And oh, how the world will misunderstand you for this. They'll call you arrogant for walking in certainty. They'll mock you for believing too deeply, for dreaming too big, but let them talk. Because you're not answering to them, you're answering to destiny. Let them laugh now. They won't be laughing when you build what they said was impossible. Every man who walked in divine faith was mocked before he was magnified. Noah looked insane until it rained. Joseph looked foolish until the famine came. David looked reckless until Goliath fell. Faith always looks foolish until it finished. So if they don't understand you, good, you're finally on the right path. Here's the part no one tells you. Acting it you've been chosen doesn't mean you won't fall. You will. You'll fail, you'll trip, you'll bleed, but failure doesn't disqualify you. It deep pit your faith. Every scar becomes a signature of survival, proof that you've been tested and found authentic. The chosen don't fear failure because they know failure refines what favor defines. Every stumble teaches obedience. Every delay teaches endurance. And when the dust settles, they rise stronger, quieter, more deliberate. That's why true kings don't boast. They just keep building. Their confidence isn't in what they've done, it's in who sent them. You must remember, this God, yes, does not exempt you from struggle, empowers you to overcome it. It doesn't mean the road will be easy, it means the destination is guaranteed. The chosen man doesn't need certainty of path, he carries certainty of purpose. But he can walk through valleys and still smile because he knows valleys are not destinations, only transitions. And when you finally start walking, like that, something inside you changes forever. You stop being a man chasing approval and become a man fulfilling assignment. You stop being a beggar at the gate of life and become a builder of kingdoms. So act like God already said yes, speak like your words are law. Move to your purpose is signed in heaven ink. Stop negotiating with doubt. Stop entertaining hesitation. Stop apologizing for being anointed. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your obedience. When you wake up tomorrow, carry yourself like a man on a mission. You are full to the world like you're backed by eternity. Istyo. Live like the Almighty has already stamped your path in light, as He has. The world doesn't need more men waiting for approval. It needs men who already know they were approved or they were born. The chosen never ask, why me? They ask, why not now? So let this be the moment you stop delaying your destiny, the moment you trade your doubt for dominion, the moment you remember that your name was spoken in heaven long before it was air whispered on earth. Don't believe you're chosen, walk a kid, build a kid, breathe a kid. Because when you do, life itself begins to bow in recognition of the authority that sent you. That, son, is when everything starts to change. Not because God finally said yes, but that you finally did too. When that fire finally settles into your bones, when it's no longer a thought but a living command, you start to understand what faith truly means. Faith isn't saying God will provide while you sit idle and safe. Faith is swinging the hammer before you even know if wood will meet nail. It planting seeds in barren ground, as heaven said, they're a harvest. You see, most men think belief is comfort, but real belief is war. It's standing on a battlefield called uncertainty and declaring victory before the dust even clears. That's the kind of man God can trust. That's the kind of man the universe bends around. When you finally act like you've already been chosen, you stop asking, will this work, and start asking, how do I serve what already been promised? Because chosen men don't chase outcomes. They obey orders. The reason most people never walk into greatness is simple. They treat divine purpose like an invitation instead of a command. They think God's favor is optional, like it can wait until they're ready. But the truth is, the call doesn't wait. It moves. Purpose is a living current, and if you stand still too long, it passes you by. Not out of punishment, but out of motion. Heaven is a system of momentum, and faith is the engine that keeps it running. You think God is silent when in truth, He already spoken. You're just standing too far behind to hear the echo. Every delay in your life isn't denial, it drifts. What happens when you stop moving toward what was already set in your name? So stop waiting for the voice of God to sound like thunder. Sometimes it sounds like restlessness. Sometimes it sounds like a thought that won't die. Sometimes it sounds like you, whispering to yourself, I was meant for more. That voice is the yes you've been praying for. When you live paid, though heaven already said yes, your discipline becomes holy. You stop working for applause and start building for eternity. You stop confusing distraction for destiny. Every small act becomes a form of worship. Every early morning, every repetition, every quiet refusal to quit. Because when you believe you've already been approved, your work is no longer a plea for validation. It's an offering of gratitude. You're not trying to earn favor, you're expressing it, and that changes everything. That turns the mundane into mission, the ordinary into order, the grind into grace. Because a chosen man doesn't need motivation, he has meaning. He doesn't look for signs, he carries them in his walk. He doesn't need the crowd to cheer, he already heard heaven clap. You're not trying to earn favor, you're expressing it, and that changes everything. That turns the mundane into mission, the ordinary into order, the grind into grace. Because a chosen man doesn't need motivation, he has meaning. He doesn't look for signs, he carries them in his walk. He doesn't need the crowd to cheer, he already heard heaven clap. Now hear me clear. The moment you accept you've been chosen, you become dangerous. Dangerous to fear, to mediocre, to the systems that profit from your doubt. Because a chosen man doesn't move like the rest. Is not swayed by moods or opinions. Is guided by law. The law written in his spirit long before the world bespoke against him. The law that says, I am at a mistake. I am a mission. You'll start to feel the shift. You'll notice you no longer fit in rooms built for small talk. You'll start outgrowing conversations that revolved on excuses. The people will notice. Some will admire it, others will resent it. But at the cost of conviction. The moment you walk like God already said yes, the world starts measuring itself against your certainty. And that makes the uncertain nervous. Don't apologize for it. Don't shrink to make them comfortable. You were not chosen to blend in, you were chosen to rebuild. You are not there to fit, you are where to found. Every generation needs men who remind the rest that divine confidence isn't arrogance, it's obedience. Here we already clear, the moment you accept you've been chosen, you become dangerous. Dangerous to fear, to mediocre, to the systems that profit from your doubt. Because a chosen man doesn't move like the rest. He's not swayed by moods or opinions. He's guided by law, the law written in his spirit long before the world bespoke against him. The law that says, I am not a mistake. I am a mission. You'll start to feel the shift. You'll notice you no longer fit in rooms built for small talk. You'll start outgrowing conversations that revolved on excuses, and people will notice. Some will admire it, others will resent it, but at the cost of conviction. The moment you walk like God already said yes, the world starts measuring itself against your certainty, and that makes the uncertain nervous. Don't apologize for it. Don't shrink to make them comfortable. You were not chosen to blend in, you were chosen to rebuild. You are not there to fit, you are where to found. Every generation needs men who remind the rest that divine confidence isn't arrogance, it's obedience. When you act there, God already said yes, you remind others what faith actually looks like. Not timid, not polite, not careful, but decisive, bold, relentless. The world is desperate for that energy, for men who walk fate of heaven itself as their business partner, men who understand that faith isn't about waiting for the light, it's about striking the match. And once you begin to move that way, heaven responds in time, not immediately, but inevitably. The doors you thought were locked begin to yield. The people you need start appearing at the right moment. The ideas you once doubted begin to unfold into clarity. It's not luck, it's law, the law of alignment. The law that says the moment a man acts as if he's chosen, the entire universe reorganizes to reflect that truth. That's how creation works. It's why a farmer plants before he sees the rain. It's why a builder lays the foundation before he receives the roof. It's why the chosen act before they feel ready, because readiness is not a condition, it's a consequence. But remember this, to live chosen is not to live without trial. The closer you get to your calling, the louder the resistance becomes. Hell doesn't attack what empty, it attacks what effective. So when you feel the weight increase, Don't interpret it aid rejection. Interpret it aid recognition. The storm rises because your obedience has been Nate's. And if you endure, if you keep walking when everything screams to stop, you'll emerge not just stronger, but steadier. That the Tate of the refining fire to build a man who would carry glory without breaking. So keep walking, son. Keep build. Keep moving with that quiet, unshaken conviction. Act like a deal already sealed, like the crown already resting on your brow, like heaven already nodding in approval, because it is. This isn't the time to wait for clarity. It's the time to create it. It's not the time to ask for signs. It's the time to become one. When you act like God already said yes, you stop living from fear and start leading from faith. And faith, true faith, doesn't whisper, it roars, because the moment you believe it, truly believe it, everything changes. Your voice deep peat, Ambrius. Your presence hard dead, your steps align with something unseen but undeniable. And that when you know you're no longer chasing favor, you become the evidence of it. And at a moment somewhere along the long road, when the noise of the world begins to fade and the hum of heaven grows louder, you start to feel something ancient stirring inside you, a kind of certainty that doesn't come from books or speeches or applause. It comes from source. It comes from knowing you were made with intention, that your very breath carries divine architecture. Every step you take begins to feel ordained. Every obstacle starts to look less like punishment and more like passage. Because that's the secret of the chosen. They don't ask for smooth roads, they ask for steady feet. They don't beg for shorter trials, they pray for longer endurance, because they understand that the weight of destiny can only rest on shoulders that have learned to carry. You can pray for impact and run from resistance. You can ask for purpose and flee from pressure. The chosen don't rake under weight, they become forged by it. When you start acting like God already said yes, you stop viewing struggle as contradiction, you begin to see it confirmation. You start realizing that every delay, every rejection, every betrayal was not God saying no, it was Him clearing the room. He removes the unready before He reveals the extraordinary. He strips away the things that could not carry your promise. That why let doors had to close, why so people had to leave, why so opportunities had to fall apart. It was not punishment, it was pruning, because the blessing was never meant to rot under the wrong soil. And you, my friend, you are not just a seed, you are an orchard. You are not just here to survive, you are here to multiply the proof of faith on this earth, a community. A community that you might met, yep, fearful element sign like with the unstarting night. Okay, let me help you enter this phase when the things that once bothered you no longer move you. When criticism sounds like background static, when setbacks no longer shake your posture. Because you'll finally understand that peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's mastery of it. The chosen don't pray for silence, they build it inside themselves. They don't run from storms, they become the eye within it. That why a man who walks as heaven already said yes has a strange calm about him. He doesn't rush, he doesn't chase, he doesn't force outcomes. They knows what his will find embodies, what divine cannot miss its mark. It might be delayed, it might take years, but it'll come, and when it does, it'll come multiplied. Now listen carefully, because this part is crucial. When God chooses you, He tests your stewardship before He hands you scale. He wants to see if you'll honor the small before He magnifies the great. That why the chosen man doesn't despise humble beginnings. He doesn't mock the slow season. He knows every small act of excellence is a seed of dominion. Understands that how you handle the unseen determines how heaven handles your future. You want to command nations? First, command your morning. You want to change the world? First, change the tone of your inner voice. Heaven is watching not at how high you reach, but how deeply you root. Because a tree that grows without roots topples in its own shadow. Every great man you've admired, Ford, Buffett, Rockefeller, Washington, none of them waited for a sign in the sky. They moved deed if they were already approved. They acted with the certainty of a man who knew heaven didn't make mistakes. That's why their legacy still breathes. They weren't chasing wealth, they were fulfilling assignment. Their riches were just the residue of obedience. You must understand that money, status, power, those are not goals for the chosen. They are consequences. They are the natural overflow of living in alignment with what you were sent in to do. Seek the assignment, not the applause, because applause fades, but alignment multiplies. And when you finally stand in that truth, when you wake up each morning with that fire in your gut and that calm in your chest, you begin to speak differently. Your words gain gravity, your silence becomes heavier than other men's noise. You move through the world like a storm contained in stillness, and people can feel it. They can't name it, but they can feel it. That's what divine confidence looks like. That's what happens when you stop begging for purpose and start breathing it. When you stop trying to convince the world and start commanding your spirit. But they tell you something you won't hear in most sermons. God does not anoint indecision. He does not bless hesitation. Heaven can only move at the speed of your conviction. So if you want to see his yes manifest in your life, move. Move when it's uncertain. Move when it's dark. Move when no one claps. Move when you're scared, because that's the moment you prove you're ready. The chosen don't wait to feel fearless. They move through fear until it surrenders. Fear never disappears. It learns to respect your authority. Every step you take in faith forces it to retreat. And the more you act, the more you realize the miracle was never waiting out there. It was waiting in you. That a power that comes from consistent movement. You sleep a power that comes from consistent movement. When your words gain gravity, your silence becomes heavier than other men's noise. You move through the world like a storm contained in stillness, and people can feel it. They can't name it, but they can feel it. That's what divine confidence looks like. That's what happens when you stop begging for purpose and start breathing it. When you stop trying to convince the world and start commanding your spirit. Let it tell you something you won't hear in most sermons. God does not anoint indecision. He does not bless hesitation. Heaven can only move at the speed of your conviction. So if you want to see his yes manifest in your life, move. Move when it's uncertain. Move when it's dark. Move when no one claps. Move when you're scared, because that's the moment you prove you're ready. The chosen don't wait to feel fearless. They move through fear until it surrenders. Fear never disappears. It learns to respect your authority. Every step you take in faith forces it to retreat. And the more you act, the more you realize the miracle was never waiting out there. It was waiting in you. That a power that comes from consistent movement. A kind of rhythm between heaven and earth. When you act in obedience, heaven multiplies your steps. You begin to feel carried by something invisible. Days feel guided. Coincidences start aligning. Prayers start answering before you even speak them. That not luck at law, that the law of faith in motion, because the chosen don't to believe, they obey. And obedience is the highest form of trust. It's saying, I may not see the full air, but I know who painted it. It walking blindfolded with full confidence in the artist. So wherever you are right now, if you're tired, doubted, unsure, pause, take a deep breath, and remember, God already said yes. The lid is set, the promise is sealed, and the only thing left is your movement. Walk, and if the universe is watching you fulfill a prophecy, 'cause it is. Speak like your words are contracts with heaven, 'cause they are. Build like every brick carries divine signature, 'cause it does. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are the miracle. And when you start living like that, the world will have no choice but to rise in recognition of your calling. And from there, life begins to unfold differently. Not that the storms stop coming, it's that you no longer flinch when they do. You begin to sense the rhythm of heaven beneath every challenge, a kind of sacred order hiding behind every obstacle. You start to realize that every delay was a disguised lesson, every closed door a redirection, every loss a refinement. You stop asking, why me, and start saying, show me, because now you understand that God doesn't send pain to punish, sends it to prepare. He doesn't test to see you fail, a test to reveal what he already placed inside you. You think you're being crushed, but you're actually being carved. The same pressure that breaks a stone can also shape a diamond. It depends on what you're made of. That's why faith, real faith, isn't soft. It's not poetic words whispered in easy times. It's a fire that survives the storm. The man who acts like God already said yes doesn't worship when the blessings flow. He worships when the night is longest, because he understands that the day God who shines in victory stands silently beside him in the valley. You see, most men don't trust heaven when it feels good. But chosen men, they trust heaven even when it feels like silence. They keep walking when prayers eats back unanswered. They keep build when no one watching. They keep speaking life into the dust, but they know what buried will rise in time, that divine endurance, the ability to keep moving when logic says stop. But let be real, that kind of faith costs something. You will lose people. You will outgrow rooms. You will be misunderstood. When you start acting like heaven already approved you, small minds will call it pride. When you start walking in divine confidence, the insecure will call it arrogance. But that's not your concern. You are not fair to explain your assignment to those still arguing with their own. You are not obligated to make your calling comfortable for anyone else. The chosen walk alone before they walk admired. That isolation isn't punishment, it's consecration. God separates the red from the restless. He strips you of dependence so that when the moment of purpose arrives, you no longer need applause. You just execute. Remember, this divine approval does not eliminate adversity, it elevates it. The higher your calling, the greater your resistance. See? A new test, but the chosen don't pray for lighter burdens. They grow stronger backs. They don't beg for peace, they cultivate it within. They understand that the lion doesn't ask the forest for silence before it roars. It just roars and the forest adjusts. That's what happens when a man decides to act. God already said yes. The world adjusts around him. His energy shifts reality. His conviction commands cooperation. That not arrogance, that alignment. When heaven frequency resonates through you, even chaos finds its order.
That right there is the miracles live. My flavor obey. And it's the thing, but think up to me.
Every time isn't coming. It already here, in this breath, in this choice. The moment you act, you create the timing. And don't you dare think you're unworthy of that power. That the lie that kept generations asleep, the belief that divine favor is reserved for the flawless. But God doesn't call the perfect. Perfect's a thigh. It doesn't wait for you to be spot hot. That strengthens you through the struggle. Every scar you carry is not disqualification, it's identification. Proof that you were chosen to fight battles most men run from. Proof that you've been refined by fires that would broken others. That's what it means to act that God already said yes. You stop the scars, shame, and start seeing them as signatures of survival. When you finally grasp that, a peace settles in your spirit. You no longer chase validation, as you've already been verified by eternity. You stop performing for applause, as your purpose doesn't need an audience. It just needs obedience. That true success lives, not in how many people see your rise, but in how faithfully you walk the unseen road. At the moment you act, you create the timing. And don't you dare think you're unworthy of that power. That the lie that kept generations asleep, the belief that divine favor is reserved for the flawless, but God doesn't call the perfect's the thigh. It doesn't wait for you to be spot wide. Strengthens you through the struggle. Every scar you carry is not disqualification, it's identification. Proof that you were chosen to fight battles most men run from. Proof that you've been refined by fires that would broken others. That what it means to act that God already said yes. You stop by at scar of shame and start seeing them signatures of survival. When you finally grasp that, a peace settles in your spirit. You no longer chase validation, as you've already been verified by eternity. You stop performing for applause, as your purpose doesn't need an audience. It just needs obedience. That true success lives, not in how many people see your rise, but in how faithfully you walk the unseen road. The most powerful men aren't those standing on stages. They're the ones who built altars in the quiet, who laughed when no one believed, who stayed consistent long after others quit. Those are the ones heaven trusts with legacy. And maybe that's you. Maybe this time you thought you were being overlooked when really you were being observed. Heaven wasn't ignoring you, it was measuring you, watching to see if your faith would survive silence, if your vision could withstand loneliness, if your discipline could outlast delay. And now, after all the pruning and proving, it's time, not someday, not after you feel ready. Now, you've been tempered, trained, tried, and you're still there. That means you're qualified. That means the yeah you've been waiting for is already echoing through the halls of heaven. So rise. Speak like a man who's been appointed. Move, for the mission is already underway. Don't ask what if it doesn't work. Ask what if it was always supposed to, because it was. The same God who lit the stars didn't waste breath creating you without purpose. Act like it. Walk like it. Build like it. You've got the approval. You've got the authority. So not just like what the stories of Struggerman and mesh what they see on the people, but pray to you then.
Once you start living out, you believe that privilege, then what's will believe that you for heaven no all bound that you would never win for a blessing. Hold on. Actualization to the solidly that people got it's a little bit different. It's not about man, I feel like and we should not be looking at the content of that. Toy on that level of the whatever what that luck play all the play was the politics and if you know waiting for a blessing of political listening seems to be you start walking with a different curriculum, you start rushing up, forcing up, people would like to see you. But now you see yourself the way heaven always did. The mirror go along shows a man try to prove the word. They shows a man standing inside it. The man finally remembered by a man who finally decided that his life was not an accident but an answer. You begin to feel something deeper than confidence. You got quite a authority that cannot be taught, cannot be faked, cannot be taken, and not hard. The presence is the kind of presence that only comes when a man knows he's only left to prove. He's lonely to walk it out. When he reaches that level of understanding, fear doesn't vanish. It bows. It doesn't stop whispering, but it loses command.
Because now your decisions are no longer built on emotion. They're built on conviction. You no longer ask, do I feel red? You declare, I was born red. Because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a recognition. It's the moment you stop looking outward for permission and start realizing that the same God who built mountains built you with the same steady hand. The chosen understand this, that doubt and destiny cannot coexist. One must die for the other to live. And every time you choose to act in faith, every time you move without proof, you are killing doubt a little more, starving it until it no longer has strength to speak. But remember, walking like you're chosen doesn't mean walking without humility. It doesn't mean believing you're better than others. It means believing you owe something greater to the one who sent you. You owe discipline, you owe gratitude, you owe excellence, because favor without stewardship becomes failure. God doesn't crown laziness and crowns labor, the kind of labor that quiet, consistent, invisible, the kind of work that happens long before the world claps. You build when no one looking, you study when no one asks. We got you.
It means walking without humility. It doesn't mean believing you're better than others. It means believing you owe something greater to the one who sent you. You owe discipline, you owe gratitude, you owe excellence, because favor without stewardship becomes failure. God doesn't crown laziness, he crowns labor, the kind of labor that quiet, consistent, invisible, the kind of work that happens long before the world claps. You build when no one looking, you study when no one asks. As
you sharpen your mind while others sleep, because you understand that divine purpose demands divine preparation. You can't carry heaven's message with an untrained hand. And make no mistake, this path will demand everything. You cannot hold on to old habits and expect a new harvest. You cannot cling to comfort and call it faith. The chosen are often stripped of what they want so they can learn what they need. God will remove the counterfeit before he delivers the calling. He will test your patience, test your focus, test your ability to move in silence while he rearranges the stage. And that most men fall away in the waiting. But the chosen don't wither in waiting, they train in it. They turn the in-between into a workshop. They polish their tools. They refine their words. They stay ready. Because when the door finally opens, they don't walk through timidly. They march through like soldiers answering a summons they already knew was coming. And add the paradox. The moment you stop trying to prove you're chosen, that when you start living like it, you no longer chase signs. You become one. You no longer pray for open doors, you start build them. You no longer fear being forgotten, heaven never forgets what it designs. That when divine ease enters your life, not laziness, but flow. The rhythm of a man aligned with his assignment. It doesn't mean the road is smooth, it means you finally understand the terrain. You stop fighting against it, you move with it. You start to realize that every hardship was a rehearsal for handling what's coming. And what coming requires a man who doesn't flinch. The world will start to notice. They'll see the shift in your tone, the steadiness in your presence. You won't need to announce it, they'll feel it. You'll walk into rooms and silence will lull. His authority doesn't need to shout. People will start asking you how you did it. They'll want the strategy, the fad, the steps. But the truth is, there was no manual. There was no belief. The unwavering decision that God already said yes. And that was enough. You'll tell them it wasn't luck, wasn't timing, wasn't talent. It was obedience. Obedience when it didn't make sense. Obedience when it hurt. Obedience when you were tired of trying. And that obedience will have written your legacy while others were still waiting for motivation. But never forget, being chosen is not about being exalted. It's about being entrusted. The world confuses glory for service. Heaven knows the opposite. You were not chosen to sit on a throne. You were chosen to build one for others. You were not chosen to be praised, you were chosen to prepare. The chosen are builders, not beggars, carriers, not consumers. They bear weight so others can walk lighter. That right there is what gives their success substance. Because when a man carries purpose not for his ego, but for his generation, heaven opens resources so hand can close. You will know when you've entered that level that everything in your life will begin to serve the mission. Even your pain, even your past. The things that once haunted you, we become testimonies that heal others. The scars that embarrassed you, we become maps for men still bleeding. Because when God chooses a man, he doesn't erase his history, it redeems it. Turns every mistake into material, every wound into wisdom. And one day you'll look back at the nights you thought were wasted, and you'll realize they were writing your message. So keep walking, keep speaking, keep acting like God already said yes, because he did. You are not waiting for the light to shine. You are the light. And when you finally embrace that, the darkness stops being something to fear and becomes something to illuminate. That's the destiny of the chosen, to escape the world, but to electrify it. So stand tall, son of purpose. Stand tall, daughter of destiny. The throne is not in the distance, it in your next obedient step.